There's one thing that I need you to learn from this whole conversation. It's not what you say that matters, it's what people hear.
You may think it's total crap, but you understand why they feel that way. Welcome to Fill in the Blanks. Frank Luntz, who has been a guest on this podcast, is a USC professor and president of Frank I. Luntz and Associates, a survey, research, and consulting firm. Now, when he was on recently, he invited me over to his house for a focus session with a group of USC students. Half of them identify as Republican or at least right-leaning in their political views, and the other half identify as Democrat with a real left-leaning, more liberal view, and there are a few independents in between. And he asked me if I wanted to participate in that to see if we could talk about how to eliminate or at least improve on the divisiveness between these two sides and get them to maybe communicate in a more productive way. I said, well, you better not ask me if you don't want me to show up. And I did show up. We spent several hours with these bright, intelligent, articulate, passionate young people on both sides. And by the way, it was a Friday night with college kids in Los Angeles. And they cared enough to take their Friday night in LA to come over to this professor's house and sit down and go through this. It's just no longer productive to be possessing an us versus them attitude. Look, there's just too much of that. We have to learn to work together. In this episode, we're going to dive into an awful lot about why we have this stance where we're like gunfighters out in the street, where we've squared off and enter any kind of interaction diametrically opposed. Frank and I are going to demonstrate how to have an open and hopefully responsive debate, Republican versus Democrat. To do this, we're going to have to be impromptu, and the only way that works is if you're willing to listen. You can't respond if you don't listen. We're going to do this impromptu in front of the group, so it's going to put he and I on the spot. We're also going to talk about how to get back in touch with the fact that we're dealing with a human being on the other side. Because everybody admits that they get so wrapped up in their values that they forget there's actually a human being over there that has a lot in common with me. I'm also going to share some FBI negotiation techniques and questions that have been perfected across time that are really important in getting the other person to loosen up their death grip on their position and be willing to consider some different positions. We're going to talk about how they label one another, how Republicans describe Democrats and how Democrats describe Republicans. We're going to talk about the Don't Say Gay debate in Florida. We're going to look at the political atmosphere on campuses, name calling, cancel culture, the cyberbullying that's taking place in the Trojan Dems and the Trojan Republican chat rooms and how they're crossing lines and really going too far with each other, and then how it's changing when it goes from cyber to real world on campus. So with about 40 students in a big room, our audio sounds a bit different than our usual podcast, but it is great content, and I'm promising you it's worth a listen, it's worth a look, because I believe it's going to give you two things: an insight into what this divisiveness is based on, and some real hope about the future, because you can't listen to these young people and not come away and say, wow, look at the brains on them.
I'm Frank. How y'all doing?
Way that I am prejudiced.
I'm Frank. How y'all doing? Who here's from USC?
Censors?
Who here's not from USC? I wanted to have people from UCLA to make you feel superior. This is important to me. Who's had me as a student? Okay, so most of you don't know me. I am interested in the civility and respect, and they're going to be filming this, and there's going to be a special guest who's going to come out and say hello to you, and he's going to participate in this conversation with me. We're going to debate tonight, and you're going to tell me what topics. I have 22 different questions, and you guys are going to choose 4 of them, and we're going to do 15-minute debates on each. So I want to introduce you to a special guest who cares what you are thinking, what you are feeling. These are why the cameras are here. So come on out, special guest.
Hey, guys. How you doing? Hello. How are you? How you doing? What's that, man?
So what do I have to do to get that kind of reaction?
You have to get taller.
I'm getting taller in the wrong direction.
Go bald, I guess. I don't know.
He's here because he's a linguist. He's here because he understands human behavior. And he wanted to hear you all speak and communicate. So I'm going to walk you through a little bit of information. And actually, you and I should do an exercise for them.
Let's do it.
And it's called A to Z. And you know what it is because you had a chance to do it. I'm going to play the Democrat. You play the Republican. And we have to make the argument using the next letter of the alphabet. And I say this because we got a few parents who are here. I try to teach my students to understand the other side, to walk in their shoes, and to actually empathize, because we're not all right and we're not all wrong. And this exercise forces us to listen to every single word that they say. It forces us to be following the alphabet as we're thinking of how we're going to defend our case. Because we're doing the opposite sides, it demonstrates that we have an understanding and an empathy for those that we disagree with, which is really important. And I'm going to challenge you. I don't think you have that empathy. Maybe not the people in this room, but there are too many in your generation who are canceling others you don't agree with. So I'll start with the letter A. You will respond to me the letter B. I'll do the letter C. I'm going to do the Democratic side. You're going to do the Republican side. And through this exercise, I'm demonstrating to you that it is worth it to me to destroy my career by playing a Democrat, because I want to teach you all the importance of empathy. Anyone can see that the Republican Party is the party of the rich, the party of the privileged. What we need is a party of the people.
Better choices can lead people to a better way of life if they'll challenge themselves to be accountable rather than blame a system for not putting them in a position they want to be.
Can't you? Okay, sucking up will get you everywhere. Can you understand that Republicans don't believe in choices? Just look at abortion.
Don't you acknowledge that choices are everyone's opportunity to express themselves in their own lane and do the things that are free will? Don't you agree that free will is inherent to every person, regardless of their age, color, creed, position, starting in society?
Every time I hear free will, I think of all the people who've been left behind, all the people who've been forgotten. You don't have free will if you don't have income. You don't have free will if you don't have opportunity. And the Republicans don't provide income or opportunity to too many Americans.
Forever can seem like a week or a month or a year, but if you realize that making small changes and letting those changes accumulate across time, they can add up to big results in a short period of time.
Go to Compton, go to Watts, and they can't wait. They can't do things incrementally. Tonight, in the time that we are here, someone's going to get murdered there. They don't have time. And that's the problem. The Republicans, they'll take their time. We're out of time, sir, with all due respect.
Help someone that needs what you think you need.
I'm glad to help someone. I'm glad to participate. I'm eager to. But you keep voting no in Washington. You keep voting against everything that we're trying to do. Just once, cooperate with us.
Just once is not enough. Just once needs to become a pattern in which people start to create the results that they want in their own life instead of blaming others for what they don't have.
Killing opportunity is not blaming others. Killing opportunity is what the Republicans do by giving tax breaks to the rich and punishing everybody else.
Leaving this in other people's lap is not the answer. Leaving it in your own lane and doing the things you need to do to create the changes you want is where you're going to get traction and create the results that you say you want instead of blaming someone else.
My family was privileged. My family had a mother and a father, and they were focused on their kids, and I was fortunate. So many families aren't. And I want to know what Republicans are going to do for those families.
Never live your life looking over your shoulder. There's a reason the rearview mirror is this big and the windshield is this big.
That's really good. See, that deserved the applause, not the first line. And the reason why that deserved the applause is he spoke visually. I can see that rearview mirror. I can see the windshield. I'm thinking of what he's saying. You guys are so focused on making your point that you're missing the imagination. You're missing that thought process that allows me to see the arguments. One time, I want you to admit that you have failed, that man, that orange man, did more damage to this country than good.
Well, pretend he doesn't run your life. Pretend that you can write a script for the rest of your life.
He does run people's lives. This man is involved in everything. He's endorsing everyone. He's involved everywhere. I just wish, just once, he'd be quiet.
Repeat that to yourself 1,000 times, and you're wasting your life. You need to focus on what you can do to rewrite the rest of the script for your life. You don't have forever. You've got to take each year and build on it. Don't ever compare yourself to others. Just compare yourself to where you were yesterday.
Shit.
Forgot what letter we're on.
T.
Take an opportunity to believe in yourself and get out of your comfort zone. Take a risk to bet on yourself and reach for something you didn't reach for last week, last month, last year. Decide you're going to take a risk to star in your own life.
Under what circumstance will you acknowledge that some people here need a boost, that some people here need a little leg up, that some people aren't born of money, aren't born to appreciate education, aren't born even with a roof over their heads? They don't have free will. Under what circumstance will you recognize those people?
Victimhood is not an assignment, it's a choice. And if you want to be a victor, you've got to take action to say, I'm going to do what I need to do to be in the place I want to be in my life. That doesn't mean you can do it on your own. It just means you're going to hold yourself accountable.
Okay, so for you guys over here, that what he just said is probably the strongest argument that you can possibly make. I do want you to remember that. This is at the core of the debate that we're going to have tonight, back and forth. Who exactly is supposed to help the child of a single mom? And she is working every day, 7 days a week, to put food on the table, to enable her children to have the education opportunities that some people take for granted. Who is listening to her in your party? Who represents her in your party? And who is going to stand up and say, she needs a break?
Xerox, Exxon, Google, all of these big corporations aren't going to do it. It's going to start at a ground root level where you begin small and you build on the things that you value in your life. There are different kinds of currency. monetary currency, social currency, emotional currency, spiritual currency. Find out what matters to you, embrace that, and be passionate about it. Who's going to help you? You're going to help you, and then you're going to get those around you to rally. I've never met a champion that was a Lone Ranger.
You're about to have the last word. And the words that you've spoken are pretty powerful. But they are just words. You had the White House, the House, and the Senate for 2 years. And all you managed to do is give millionaires and billionaires the tax cut. You managed to stuff the court. But what did you do for the average American to help their lives?
Zero if you're measuring it by what you have been given. Plenty if you measure it by opportunities that were put out in front of you to embrace.
Guy, you're fucking awesome. You know that.
That's not easy when you get down in the XYZs.
So I know, it's like, I'm thinking, how's he gonna get through this? What I should have done is, because I don't want to make his life difficult, is I should have let him go first. I didn't think of it as I started, and then we get down to these points. But it means that you're preparing, you're trying to figure out what you're gonna say, but you have to listen to the other person, because you guys do shut down people. And the people who are yelling and screaming never listened to anything that was said at the beginning. They just came to disrupt. And I assume that you're gonna learn more tonight by this conversation. Anything before I show them stuff that you want them to know?
Well, I'd like to say what I learned from doing that, because I've not done that before. And I found myself, if I was thinking about what I was going to say next instead of listening to what you were saying, I couldn't be responsive. I couldn't just think of a Z word. I had to listen to what you were saying in order to be responsive. And then it was just natural to say, well, zero if you're measuring with that yardstick. But if I didn't really listen to you and instead was thinking about what I was going to say next, then we weren't really having a conversation.
And he thinks with his heart, not just with his head. So what was I doing? I'm using a specific word that he said. If you go back and replay this, almost every response, I found a way to take a word that you had spoken of and use that word in my argument. You can't do that if you're yelling at somebody, because you can't hear them. So this is a good reason. You want to be impactful. But I want to show you a couple things. What am I trying to say here?
Speak up, be loud.
Not be loud, be heard. That microphone allows you, if you speak in this room without a mic, you'll be heard by 30 or 40 people, maybe 50. If you have that microphone, you can be heard by 500 or 5,000, because I want everyone to be heard. If you're not heard, you will create the next Donald Trump. If people don't feel heard, they get mad, and then they start to do things that are not necessarily good for others. And I'm trying to address that. So I love this. Does the frog live or die? Who here thinks the frog lives? Raise your hands. Who thinks the frog dies? Raise your hands. Okay, you're all pessimists. If you think the frog lives, please stand up. If you're standing right now, you are correct, but I want to know why. Why does the frog live?
Maybe a symbiotic relationship.
That's not correct. Why does the frog live? And if you get it wrong, you got to sit down.
It wouldn't put itself in danger if it didn't have trust.
Or maybe it's a dumb frog or can't see. Down. Why does the frog live?
The opportunity cost for the alligator isn't worth trying to capture the frog, so they trust each other.
The opportunity cost. Are you in business?
I'm an engineer.
Oh, God. Just sit down for that reason alone. Does the frog live or die?
The frog lives.
Why?
Because he has a reason to be there.
No, it could just be a dumb frog. Down. Why does the frog live?
It's Schrodinger's cat. We don't know. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Did you do drugs before you came here? Why does the frog live?
Is it a poisonous frog?
No. No one got it. I can't believe this. Why does the frog live?
The alligator full?
That's a good answer. That is a good answer. It's the wrong answer, but it's a good answer. Why does the frog live?
Alligators don't eat frogs.
They do eat frogs. Why does the frog live? I want to see who's smarter, the Republicans or the Democrats. Why does the frog live?
Something killed the alligator.
You're close. Why does the frog live? Yes.
Is the alligator already dead?
She got it. The alligator's dead. I asked you, does the frog live? It has nothing to do with the frog. You're giving me frog answers. Whether the frog lives or not has nothing to do with the frog and everything to do with the alligator. There's one thing that I need you to learn from this whole conversation. It's not what you say that matters, it's what people hear. When you're debating, when you're arguing, look them straight in the eye. I make eye contact and I don't look away, and it's hard. And by the way, one of my problems, and I need help, I really do, is that I look for the person who's most annoyed with me, and that's the person I stare at. So the whole room could be going like this and really into it, and I'm focused on the one individual that's giving me a hard time. Why is that?
I work a lot with juries, and we always went after that person. The 9 we've got, we don't focus on. We focus on the person we don't have, because the real closing argument takes place in the jury room, not in the courtroom. And so we go after that person, and if we can get them, then we know we're making progress. I don't want to preach to the choir. I want to preach to the people that don't agree with me and see if I can persuade them. So I assume that's why you focus on the person that you don't have, giving you minimal encouragers with everything you're saying.
So think about this. How often do you see a conservative who comes to your campus that you really don't want there? How often are you trying to move them over to your side versus to dismiss them or embarrass them, to debate them, not to change hearts or minds, but to embarrass? That doesn't win anybody over. College Democrats and college Republicans should be doing so much stuff together because you got one thing in common. You care about your country. You care about your country, don't you? You care about your country, don't you? Don't you realize you've got that in common? That you actually care about what happens to the future of America?
Can I ask a question before you move on?
Yes.
I do a lot of work with law enforcement, particularly with negotiators, hostage negotiators, that sort of thing. What do you think the number one objective is with an FBI negotiator if they're working with someone that's taken hostages? What do you suppose their number one objective is in establishing their relationship with the hostage taker? What do you think?
Preserve life.
Yeah, of course, they want people out. What do you think?
Understand their reasoning.
I'd say try to humanize them in a way that like also connects them like with their family and their friends.
In a sense, some of that is right, but they will tell you this. They have never had a hostage taker surrender or release a hostage until that hostage taker believes the negotiator understands why they took those hostages to begin with. You don't have to agree with it. They have to know you understand why they did what they did. And that hostage taker is never releasing those hostages till he knows that that negotiator gets why he did that. And that's not happening on college campuses. They're not understanding why that person that they're objecting to being there feels the way they feel. I didn't say you have to agree with them, just that you understand why they're taking the position. You may think it's total crap, but you understand why they feel that way.
How often does that happen in a debate? Where you actually seek to learn something from the other side? So why is it that you don't want to have these students canceled? And yet you cancel. You're saying to them, let this education happen. Let people decide. But you don't allow people to come onto campus that have points of view that are different than yours.
I mean, we had 2 debates recently in which the Trojan Democrats and USC GOP had debaters face each other. I was in both of them. We're very much open to the marketplace of ideas, and we invite people to speak with us.
Do you guys feel like your campus is open? Do you feel you're going, no?
I mean, not necessarily. Like when it comes to, being a Republican and talking about it on campus, it's not very I can't even wear my GOP shirt on campus without people coming up to me and kind of yelling at me and bringing up certain political topics and then trying to have a debate with me. I mean, I'm just kind of thinking back to the second debate when We were just trying to have a debate, and then the mic just kept getting grabbed from our party.
Did that happen?
I openly invited him to speak on economic policy, whether fiscal or monetary, multiple times, and he didn't stick to the subject once, and I kept trying to get him to give me one policy hint.
But you grabbed the mic, right?
I grabbed the mic from him after he went off topic again for the third or fourth time.
So, so your solution to that was just taking the mic from him and shouting over him?
What's the environment for Republicans on college campuses? I'm asking you.
I would say it's not as welcoming. Most of the time, I refrain from having political conversations, generally because the topics tend to get overblown or overheated.
What does it feel like to be a Republican on campus?
Frightening.
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 Why?
I related a lot to, I'm a member of the Christian club on campus, one of the Christian clubs. And so just because of it's very polarized, there are many people who, if you announce to others that you are a Christian, that you believe in Christ and you have a faith centered around such an individual, that you are in a way looked down upon, because again, something that liberals or Democrats generally will argue about is that you are against people who identify as homosexual or non-heterosexual. Overall, you carry this cloak that really makes you stand out among others, and it feels like you're targeted.
But what's your reaction to that?
I just want to disagree with this sentiment that politically diverse ideas are not welcomed on college campuses. I think we as Americans are as divided as we are at college campuses. It's translating from our national politicians and the media. We are just a byproduct of what our politicians and our media are telling us every day. And when we do interact, we are reflecting our larger society, which is more polarized than ever before. So just because we are young, in my opinion, and this sentiment that college campuses are the only areas of the American populate that are divided is just not accurate, in my opinion.
Going back to you saying that you were terrified to be a Republican on campus, I have firsthand experienced some of the biggest atrocities is basically the word I would use to describe, coming from the USC GOP, calling women who've had abortions murderous whores. Oh, it goes on. Commenting on women's appearances, comparing their personalities to, she looks this way, so this is, of course, her personality. But when it's going on in a group chat messaging with the entire club, and the president is seeing this and commenting things when no one is calling anybody out, when comments are being liked, it's the entire club. So for you to say that you're terrified to be on campus as a Republican, I'm terrified to be on campus with individuals who think this way.
We have a group chat that is, for a lot of people in our group, I would feel the most comfortable talking about anything is in this chat, because we can't just blatantly go walking around campus talking about the things we said. It is polarizing if I was to put my opinion out there. I'm not condoning what he said about you. It's absolutely inappropriate. But to go ahead and use that as a generalization and say that, guess what? He can say that, and we also can give him backlash on it. We have. But what else do you expect us to do other than you generalizing us into that group?
I think the issue here more is the animosity from both sides. I've experienced it myself from your members last year, one of them, and this isn't in a group chat, he made fun of me, called me Kamala because I am outspoken. And, you're right here. That happened. And at the end of the day, it's not, where's the screenshot? Who cares about that? That's not what we're here for. We're here to build bridges and understand each other. And that's really hard to do when there are names being called and there's just, looks and certain things where we can't build bridges that way.
Number one, I didn't say you're Kamala. I said you're laughing like Kamala, because we had a bipartisan event. It was not a debate.
I also think that doesn't really matter.
Okay, look, why am I getting interrupted? We're all being respectful here. Thank you.
And you guys, I'm seeing people across the room.
Again, I didn't even finish my sentence.
I just wanted to point out that I have friends on the other side, and I know that even we have mutual friends who's an outspoken Republican, right? I'm so sorry I interrupted you as well, because I do want to be respectful of your voice as well, so I apologize. But this is so counterproductive.
You were laughing at our members while our members were speaking. We pointed it out multiple times, and you guys kept laughing and laughing and laughing at all of us.
I'm really sorry to anyone who had to experience that. I'm not on USC Dems. I'm just kind of here. But we have to consider the social context of where we exist and the fact that we're post-Zoom and a lot of us are chronically online. And we, like, at least I know, and I think a lot of people should know, algorithms intentionally make echo spaces that become more and more divisive because fundamentally, these people who create these algorithms don't care about us. They don't care about our feelings. They care about engagement. I get scared sometimes when I go to Republican spaces because I have the assumption that I'm going to be hated against because of, my skin tone or my sexuality or whatever. And obviously that may not be true. But on the same end, I feel like there's a lot of Republicans who come in looking at Democrats and people on the left in general as just, naive or woke, to use the words you guys said, which I don't feel is an accurate description of either side, to look at someone and be immediately hateful, immediately naive. It does not produce what we're trying to do here, which is have a constructive conversation instead of, getting angry at each other, which I understand why you would get angry at each other. This is everything you guys have said is very fair in terms of anger. I'm very sorry if anyone has called you anything horrible. That sucks.
So I'm not in USC GOP or USC Dems. And I think that's terrible. I think that's horrible. And just to sympathize or empathize, coming back to Frank's original question, which is, are you scared on campus? I would say that it's completely valid to kind of question sharing your political feelings when the demographics of a college campus are generally those that are more liberal, especially having experienced something so directly cancel culture.
I'm not involved with either parties, and I'm actually a student journalist, and I would say personally and professionally, I see the polarization and the intolerance have a really negative effect on our campus and on our political discourse. People just don't want to talk politics. People don't want to talk about the news of the day. People don't want to comment on anything because they're worried one way or the other that what they're going to say is going to be judged fiercely by people. And it's causing this culture where people don't want to engage in public discourse. They don't want to get involved. They don't want to participate. And I think we can all agree that that is very harmful to our democracy. And one of my biggest issues with Republicans, not necessarily college students, but national Republicans, are the vicious attacks on the media, the labeling of fake news just because you disagree with something. I mean,
liar.
Liar. Yeah, exactly. Things of that nature that, journalism is also another hallmark of democracy. I know there's kids on campus who they feel they speak up and it's like walking on eggshells, and it's very intolerant. It's very anxiety inducing. And I think the characterization of fearful is accurate.
I actually do have a question for the Republicans. Hi. So I grew up in a conservative Latino community. I myself am not conservative. If cancel culture wasn't a thing, or if it wasn't as big of a problem as it is now, how open-minded would you say you would be to these new ideas that liberals, progressives, and the Democratic Party are, proposing?
I think the issue with with canceling that we have is that the Democrat, I'm going to generalize real quick, but the Democrat Party seems to be so objectively true on all these things, but the second anybody contests it, it's shot down. That's the opposite of what actual science actually is literally defined as being.
So I think this whole discourse is kind of interesting to me personally, because I grew up in Kansas, of all places. So for me, cancel culture has always been less of a partisan issue and more of kind of just an overall tolerance issue. I think that we can all be more tolerant of ideas generally, just because I have seen the flip side.
When you talk about tolerance, I think that's a really good point, because I think something we all hopefully can be able to acknowledge is that we all don't fit into confined boxes. In fact, I go and I sit down in my classes which are kind of predominantly dominated by liberals, and I sit down and there are many ideas I agree with and I fully stand with. If I were to present that I do not agree with one idea, it almost comes down to that I do not agree with any of them. When the fact of the matter is this is more nuanced, and I think that is what is shutting people out, and it becomes this kind of villainization that if I were to not agree with the whole pie, I can't be a part of any of it.
This happened to me during COVID. I got canceled online. A petition was filed by my coworkers who I was friends with. I got blasted. I got sent messages by people I did not know on Instagram, calling me a racist, Me, a racist. That's crazy. Sexist, homophobe, all these things. People who I don't even know. They don't even know me. My superiors told me about this petition because I wouldn't have known about it. And they laughed at it. I didn't get fired. But why try to ruin my life? Make my life a living hell? Why do that? Why try to cancel someone you don't even know? You jump on the bandwagon and you just try to ruin their life for no reason.
I wonder if everybody, all of us, should take pause. I see people do things on the internet. I deal with cyberbullying a lot. I've testified on Capitol Hill about it before, with kids losing their lives because they're cyberbullied and they take their own lives. You'll say things on a keyboard anonymously that you wouldn't say to somebody if you were standing next to them in an elevator, or you'd scream things in a car if somebody cuts you off that you wouldn't say to somebody in a line at the grocery store. When you do this stuff, it reflects on you more than it does the person that you're attacking. I wonder sometimes if we need to stop and think about really the impact of what we're doing on someone that we don't even know. In this room tonight, it seems like everybody's really being pretty respectful and considerate of other people, but it doesn't sound like it's always been that way. But when you look people in the eye, it changes the way we feel sometimes. And I don't think we have enough eye contact anymore. We don't regard each other in a human way enough. Next week on Fill in the Blanks, we continue the conversation with the students, and it gets pretty emotional.
Is that the words you want to say in a discussion like this?
This is kind of horrifying. It seems like you guys just fundamentally don't like each other as people.
People cannot even watch a 15-second TikTok. I'm surprised everyone is still here.
Are you trying to win an argument, or are you trying to reach a common ground? On the next Fill in the Blank.